love process maps. I love creating them, I love talking about them, and I love teaching entrepreneurs and our clients how to make them in such an easy and fun way. So, spoiler alert, we're not just creating process maps for shits and giggles because we have nothing better to do. It's actually a tool that helps improve your systems and processes because it allows you to visually lay out and map out from start to finish, like exactly what happens. No matter if you're, say, visualizing this 3 separate choose your own adventure path your customers would be going down in their customer journey and deciding exactly like what type of content to best serve them at each moment, or you're trying to visualize a client onboarding experience process to not only give your clients a really good first experience with you as a client, but also which steps are manual or automated and which steps and tasks your team needs to do and when. Or maybe you're trying to plan out this very complicated automation with many simultaneous and moving parts, and you just need to figure out what goes when and how they all work together. These are just 3 of many, many examples as to why process mapping is so important. Hold on, I just got ahead of myself because this is not the video to be going into the benefits of process mapping. That's another video. So if you're watching this video, you're in exactly the right place where I'll walk you through step by step as to how to create a process map, not only very easily, but in a way that's actually super useful using the method I created, because the traditional ways of it never worked for me, no matter how much I tried in the 10 plus years I've been doing this. If you're excited to build a process map that's actually beneficial, hit the like button and be sure to subscribe for weekly videos, as this is the place to be to build an immensely peaceful and profitable business that runs like a well-oiled machine through the magic of pleasurable processes. With me, Veronica Jans, founder of Business Laid Bare. I'm going to be honest with you. The standard ways in which creating process maps leans very heavily on shapes to tell you what's happening. Maybe it's my neurodivergent brain or something, but it never worked for me. So I developed another way to do it that happens to be very effective for when I teach it to my clients as well. So while I use shapes in my process mapping, my priority is actually illustrating what's happening with colors. And because Business Laid Bare focuses so much on understanding people first, after all, that's why we're all about people first and pleasure-filled processes, we've come to understand what's really intuitive for humans. And it turns out colors are often more intuitive and easier for people to understand and remember and differentiate from than shapes. And in case you're going, sure, it usually works for other people, but it doesn't work for me, trust me, this method works. I've helped hundreds of clients in many different industries create process maps, from sex techs to nonprofit, to branding agencies, subscription boxes, doula services, pet businesses, bakeries, SaaS startups, and everything in between. So I promise it'll work for you too, and I'll teach you different ways to make it work for you so that you're not exactly cookie cutter copying me, because I want it to make sense for you, but just to give you a little structure and framework. So let's go over to my computer and let's get started. Okay, so before I get started on teaching you how to create a process map, I want to preface it with this. Don't spend time learning new software that you don't have to. The reason why I'm showing you on Miro, which is actually my favorite app, is because my handwriting sucks and I want to make sure that I can teach it to you in a really effective way. What I actually recommend all my clients and students and entrepreneurs do to start with is literally pen and paper or sticky notes and Sharpies on a whiteboard. Something that will get you focused on creating rather than figuring out how to use the dang software, right? So that's what I'm going to preface this with. And with that being said, let's go into step number 1, create your legend. So you don't have to do it exactly like I do. I created this for myself and my team because, 1, I really wanted to have colors that were contrasting so that I could immediately see how efficient or how dysfunctional a process is. And these really different and opposing colors make it easy for me to quickly glance. And I'll show you what I mean. And when it comes to deciding what to add to your legend, really make it simple. So for us, we started with actions that a client or prospective client takes, manual action that the Business Laid Bare team has to take, actions that is being taken care of by an automation, whether that's Zapier or a native integration. And I always want to keep track of my wins. So what was manual that we were now able to automate? That's a huge win for us, right? The fewer things we have to do manually, that can save us time, the better. And so, like I said, I do have some shapes, but they're very, very minimal. We have mainly that square rectangle one. And then we have a diamond for decision. Like, hey, did the client want to move forward, or did the client want to bring additional team members into our engagement together? Like, this is what the decision diamond is. And then I have like a soft square to notate what we do together. Something like, hey, we get on a sales call together or a kickoff call together. There is another shape that we can create here if you wanted to, which is like a delay or wait, but it's not important. Like, this is plenty enough. The next step is to build your main process. And the reason why I say this is because process maps can get complicated, but you don't want to lose sight of what's actually important to convey. Whether it is a sales process or a customer journey process or a client onboarding process, to name a few, you really want to make sure that you get the one that you're trying to visualize for before you start building like little offshoots. So ultimately, when it comes to creating a process map, it's always about asking what's next. Something happens, the client signs a contract, pays an invoice. Okay, great. What happens next? And that often is determined by what or who is responsible for the process, right? So if it's the client, or if it's an automation, or if it's you and your team member, it needs to be documented. I'm going to use my process map as an example because I built it out in the layers that I wanted to teach you so that you could see what's going on. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to create a client journey from when somebody landed on my sales page all the way to when we said goodbye. So what happens here is that I just literally documented what I want to happen. So you can either do this one of two ways. You can document the process as you have the process now, whether it's so smooth or dysfunctional, it doesn't matter. You can document it as is. Or you can use this time to create a process map of what you actually want the process to be, because you already know your current process might be a little lackluster or it's too manual. So it's like, this is your dreaming state to figure out what you actually want to do. So for us, when we say create the client journey or the desired client journey, the main quest for us, it would literally be they land on their sales page, they book a sales call, they get on a sales call. And if they want to work with us, here's all the steps that happen, whether it's done by them or by an automation or by us. We document everything. We list out all the steps. And then I kind of have like another step here. It's not a side process, but it's just like an option. Like, hey, once they land on the sales page, maybe they don't want to book a consult call because they already know they want to work with us. They want to go straight to working with us, and that then kicks them and skips all of this and kicks them all the way to here. Step number 3 is then to build out the side branches, workflows, side quests, whatever you want to call it, right? So at first we just had it going left to right. That's generally the standard and what makes intuitive sense. You can go up and down, it doesn't matter, but I generally go left to right. And then what happens afterwards is, okay, as a result of each action, like say book a consult call, what happens next? And so the reason why we want to do this as step number 3 is because now you're thinking about all the little areas that need to be plugged, because you don't want clients or anybody falling through gaps in your process and into your business abyss. So for instance, once somebody books a consult call with me, this is the process that I would like to happen. Notice I have it all colored the same thing. And the reason why I have it all colored manual, so if we just scroll all the way back up top to the legend, the reason why I have everything all manual to begin with is because I don't want to make the assumption that this can happen. So generally what happens is if someone books a consult call with me, there is an automation done through Zapier that sends me a Slack message so that my entire team knows, hey, so-and-so booked a consult call on this day at this time. However, when we're building on a process map, I don't want to make the assumption that this can be automated, because then if I make assumptions, it doesn't look good if I actually missed on that assumption and it doesn't work. So to be safe, I just build all of my side quests, workflows, and sub-processes in pink manually, assuming that I have to do it by hand.
And so we go along the process, like what happens if they don't want to work with us? Well, then we have to mark this as a loss on our CRM and explain why. And because we have marked it a certain way, another zap will take place. But again, we don't know that because we pretended we didn't know that. What we're trying to showcase here is that if I mark lost on the CRM so that my team knows, then I would like something to update on our active campaign lists and tags to update our contact as appropriate. And lastly, step number 4 is to color code accordingly. So what I mean by this is we had everything pink or manual for us. Now the next step is to go through each step and ask yourself, is it possible to automate this? If it's not possible, okay, we have to leave it manual, but how do we make sure we account for it? So what's really awesome about having this process map and color coding it this way in the way that we teach it is because anything that's manual can be SOP'd, right? And if you happen to need ideas on how to create SOPs, you can also download that information in the toolkit that I link below as well. But going back to this, so not only do you know what you need to create documentation for, you can also assign roughly what you're creating and who it's going to be executed by. It doesn't have to be permanent, but it's just kind of like an FYI as you're working things out, like, oh, Veronica's doing a lot of things, or maybe this team member isn't doing enough. So therefore, it's really easy for you to play around with your process map to understand how do you make sure that you're not only documenting and color coding correctly, but making sure that the right people are doing the right tasks. Now that you know how to create process maps, I'm super curious as to what you're going to be creating process maps of. Please comment below to not only give me more ideas, but also other viewers who are coming onto this video ideas of what they can make process maps out of. If you want to make creating process maps even easier, I've actually included templates, other process map examples, and more in my Essential Business Operations Toolkit. You can grab the toolkit in the description below. Now that you have a process map, you can totally use it to train new and existing team members on what the standardized process is so that you don't have to be a broken record, or even if you've mapped out this process and you've analyzed it, you could totally understand where things could be better, more pleasurable, more automated, and even more efficient, or all of the above. Here, let me show you exactly what I mean by showing you a before and after process of a client here. So let's go back. So I really love showing process maps because they're so insightful when it comes to how can processes be better. So for instance, on the screen is a client who came to us. They have 20 team members on their team, were making 7 figures, and they wanted to scale, but they were wondering why their sales process wasn't converting or what other areas in their business was stalling. So they called us up and we worked some magic onto them. But I wanted to show you this visual because this was the process that we were able to diagram out of what it was like to not only have the clients or prospective clients go from I'm curious to working with you to what they call the discovery call. But as you can see here, for us, if anything is in pink, just as a reminder, it's manual. And anything that's a diamond is a decision that somebody has to make. And it's color coded by depending on who you want to make that process with. So if it's yellow, it means that the client needs to make that decision. And as you can see here, it is super pink, super manual. And there were so many decision and complex loops here that no wonder prospective clients weren't getting on a call. Like they were having to go through so many hoops, not only the clients, but the team members as well, to make sure if everybody was available. And the admin assistant had to manually add everybody. It was just a complete mess, right? So there were so many decisions and areas that people could fall through. So when we came in, we were able to simplify the sales call process, the discovery call process, with intentional automations that created context, minimal manual actions on the team, and we were able to give them the right technology to make everything work the way that it was supposed to so that we could skip all this manual stuff. And as you can see, not only did they get to the end result faster, there were fewer manual actions, there were automations that supported the system and process so that they could make money without even having to worry, could make sure their CRM was updated, can make sure that team members' calendars were filled exactly as it needed to be. And so you can just clearly see that both processes, while worked, the one that we ended up putting in because we were able to process map this, made so much more sense. And the CEO had no idea. She was like, this is my process? Like, what the heck is going on, right? She had no idea until we actually visualized it for her that it was so dysfunctional. And so when we put this in, they actually increased their close rate and the amount of bookings and calls they could handle by 200%. So that was a huge win for them and process mapping.
Thank you so much for watching. To more pleasure and profit, and I'll see you in the next video.